blackbirds singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird fly, blackbird fly, into the light of the dark black night. Hello, my name is Kelli McKee, and I'm a music therapist with SSM Health at Home here in St. Louis, Missouri. I came back from participating in the Mission Days Glee Choir to find a note on my desk from the daughter of a patient who had recently passed. This is what it said. Thank you for all of your invaluable assistance with Dad. He really enjoyed the music therapy, and I'm so glad he got to sing one more time before he died, as music was his heart. What a fitting reminder that the work we do truly does matter. I took a moment to reflect and remember this patient, a 90-something-year-old World War II veteran who spent much of his younger life singing in barbershop quartets. At the end of our one and only visit together, he took my hand and said, "You don't know how much it means to an old man like me, without much left in the world, to hear those old songs again." As a music therapist for our hospice patients, these are the experiences that I'm blessed to have on a regular basis. So let's talk about hospice, the dreaded H word. It's a subject many people are scared to talk about. Perceptions are often that hospice work is doom and gloom, it's depressing, it's heavy, it's hard, as she was saying, how can you do that? But before working in hospice, I actually had many of those same thoughts myself, and I was hesitant to even interview for a hospice role a few years ago after I finished my master's degree in music therapy. Little did I know, there would be countless opportunities to create moments of joy and hope with our patients and their families. In the words of the great Hans Christian Andersen, where words fail, music speaks. So obviously, I have the unique advantage of having music as my tool, and that helps immensely. But it's truly through the work of our team, working together, each discipline playing an important role, that we can improve the quality of life during the limited time our patients have left. Every day is different, but every day is definitely rewarding. Since many of you may not be familiar with the field of music therapy, in a nutshell, it's a board-certified music therapist using music with a patient or client to work towards non-musical goals. In hospice, many of the goals that come up frequently are pain and symptom management, assisting with depression and anxiety, social engagement, especially for our nursing home patients, spiritual support. I've had many patients say that the worst part about being ill is missing their church congregation and family, and I'm able to bring those hymns that are familiar and important to them right to their bedside. So that's a good one. Life review, also coping support, and peace and comfort. I hope after you hear a couple of my stories about patient experiences, you'll understand why I love working for SSM so much. Last summer, I was asked to visit a young patient in his 40s in one of our hospitals to provide coping support for his family and try to do what I could to assist with the high level of pain and agitation he was experiencing. The chaplain and I arrived, and we were welcomed by his wife, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law. The patient was actively dying and was unresponsive verbally by this point. After hearing that he enjoyed classic rock and music from the 70s and 80s, I began with a Bob Marley song, "Three Little Birds," which I felt had applicable, comforting lyrics, considering the situation. For those of you that are not familiar with that song, the gist of it is don't worry about a thing, because every little thing is going to be all right. The patient's wife immediately became tearful and held his hand, occasionally stroking his arm and head as I continued to sing. At the end of the song, I learned that he had chosen to listen to this very Bob Marley album while being put under for his first surgery, and she felt it was a special sign that I chose that song to begin our session. I breathed a mental sigh of relief as we were off to a great start. As she continued to share stories about her husband, I chose songs to parallel what I had learned. Each song was met with approval and tearful smiles by his family members. His sister-in-law even made a list of the songs that we were singing together before I left, and all of the family members expressed their deep appreciation for the visit. His wife actually pulled me aside as I left the room and said that it was the calmest he had been in days during the music, and this patient went to heaven the following morning. The following week, as I waited in line to sign the guest book at his memorial service and visitation, I heard the familiar sounds of Creedence Clearwater Revival music playing in the background. I was kind of surprised because that's a little bit out of the ordinary for music you would normally hear in this setting. But when it was my turn to speak with his wife, she mentioned that they were so moved by our visit that they chose to make a playlist of the songs to use at his memorial. She reiterated that receiving music therapy in the hospital was the most notable bright spot in an otherwise dark and unbearable experience for their family. What a special feeling to know that our work had such an impact and was so meaningful. A few months later, I visited a patient at home in his 70s and his family to reduce anxiety and support coping and help his relatives with some anticipatory grief support. When I entered the patient's bedroom, he was sitting up in his hospital bed and appeared anxious. His eyes brightened slightly, but he presented with a flat affect and spoke very quietly. After I gave him a brief overview of what music therapy is and the ways I might be able to help him, we discussed his music preferences. The patient's nickname was Jack, and at his request, we started with his all-time favorite song, Jack and Diane by John Cougar Mellencamp. The patient immediately began to smile and quietly sing along, tapping his feet under the covers and tapping his fingers along with the rhythm as if playing an air piano. His niece was smiling ear to ear as she watched her uncle experience a rare moment of joy and connection, and she was overcome with tears. As we continued to sing country and classic rock songs together, the patient's mood continued to shift positively. He shared memories and stories associated with some of the songs, and his family members even learned a few new things about him. His niece was so excited that she called one of her teenage grandchildren to come to the house and witness this encounter. She arrived pretty quickly and brought 2 additional very young grandchildren. I gave the younger kids small hand percussion instruments and asked them to help keep me a beat. It's always nice to give someone a role. And the older grandchild recorded the remainder of our visit on her iPhone, typical teenager, and told us of her plans to share on YouTube with their other family members immediately. The patient and his family expressed their gratitude for the visit and requested visits as often as possible. Sadly, he passed the following evening, so we weren't able to see each other again, but I'm so grateful to have been there at a time when he could be recorded. I love knowing that his family will be able to watch this video from the very last day of his life and hopefully have wonderful memories. I once heard a quote that really stuck with me, and it's never far from my mind as I complete my daily visits. When medical science can no longer add days to a person's life, hospice can add life to a person's days. I believe this philosophy is a perfect example of our SSM mission, and I hope Mother Odelia is looking down and feeling proud of our hospice team's work. Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to be free. You were only waiting for this moment to be free.